Welcome back to my channel, Famous and Fabulous. I'm sad looking back now. You know, hindsight's 2020. I'm sad that I wasn't tougher on Ace and Peter, the two original guys who played guitar and drums in the band. Ace Frehley, guitar legend and co-founder of Kiss. Oh my gosh, Kiss is on the red carpet. This is definitely not your mama's country music. It is country. The famous rock band Kiss showed up, and that Raminator guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, has died at the age of 74, leaving a huge empty space in the rock music world. Alright, we have some sad news to share here. The founding member of Kiss has died. His sudden death shocked the whole music world. At the memorial service, Gene Simmons walked up to the podium with a powerful, emotional and heavy speech, leaving everyone there speechless. The whole world watched that moment, seeing a rock icon who had become a legend. On the morning of October 16th, 2025, the news of Ace Frehley's death was confirmed by Morristown Hospital at 3:20 p.m. Eastern Time. The medical report said the cause of death was problems from a brain bleeding after a fall in the studio a few weeks before. The accident happened suddenly while Frehley was working on finishing his own recording project. Within hours, many rock radio stations across the US changed their broadcast schedules, playing his famous solo songs again like Shock Me and New York Groove. The music world was sad. The Frehley family released a short statement. The funeral was held privately in their hometown with relatives and some former co-workers there, and unfortunately had to do a lot of shows in recent years about rock. Icons that have died but never one like this. For me, because this is a whole different level for me. Because this was not only a rock hero to me. Among those who came to pay their respects, the name that made everyone wait was Gene Simmons. The image of two people who had been separated for many years, now standing together in the last moment, became a symbol of a journey full of fights and a legacy that lasted more than 50 years. When he walked up to the podium, Simmons held his eulogy, his voice calm. Ace was the first person to make a guitar in his hand laugh and cry. No one can replace that energy. The sharing spread faster than the sad news. At the funeral, Paul Stanley simply said, "We were different, but music kept us in the same world." Stanley's speech was played on national television, marking a rare moment when the members of Kiss appeared together since the group stopped touring. Before his death, Frehley was still recording new music with familiar classic sounds. His manager confirmed that he had finished almost 80% of the project planned for release at the end of 2025. The last recording on the hard drive was called Beyond the Lights, the name of which is said to be his most passionate project in more than 10 years. After the funeral, many radio stations in the US and Europe at the same time played old interviews again, in which Frehley once admitted, "I have lived my whole life in electronic sounds and black smoke, but every time I stand on stage, I still feel like I am just starting." That sentence was repeated over and over in the media as a complete summary of a career that crossed the line between talent and self-destruction. That day, at a small funeral home in New Jersey, news channels recorded the appearance of many younger generation artists who once thought of Frehley as a creative icon. They spoke not of tragedy, but of the musical bravery that Ace brought from his time with Kiss until his final years. A large portrait of him in his Spaceman costume was placed in the center of the altar. Below it was the silver Les Paul guitar that Frehley used on his reunion tour. After the service, Simmons left the funeral home, not giving any interviews, leaving only a short message in his personal social media. "Goodbye, Spaceman." The phrase quickly became iconic around the world, appearing in tributes, special publications, and even on stages where Kiss fans gathered tour member Frehley. His death made people look back at the whole journey he had been on, from his early years with Kiss to becoming an independent icon. From those final moments, the audience is brought back to the origins and the journey of the unique musical style, where Spaceman began to write his unforgettable mark. The rise of the Spaceman. Ace Frehley was born in the Bronx, New York, to a working-class family. As a teenager, he spent hours playing air guitar borrowed from a relative, copying every note of the Rolling Stones and Jimi Hendrix. It was then that he discovered his ability to create a unique sound, one that would become his signature. When he met Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley at a Manhattan audition, the connection was almost instant. The three men shared a common goal to create music that was stronger, different, and bolder than anything else on the market at the time. From that idea, Kiss was born. Frehley took on the lead guitar role and designed his own character, the Spaceman, a symbol of freedom, exploration, and explosive energy. He was the first in the group towed light smoke and electric flares onto the stage. The image quickly became a global icon, helping Kiss go beyond the boundaries of a typical rock band. Every time he took to the stage, Frehley would captivate audiences with his thick, powerful, unpredictable guitar. In the early years of Kiss, Frehley played a central role in shaping the band's sound. He came up with many of the band's signature solos and was largely responsible for the arrangements. The song Shock Me is a perfect example of this, written after an electric shock during a performance. The song became one of Kiss's most iconic moments. Frehley once said in an interview, "I just wanted to play it, like it was the last time I ever picked up the guitar." This statement later became a motto for his instinctive performing style. Along with his technical talent, Frehley was also known for his endless creativity. During their recording of Love Gun, he experimented with new sound effects by flipping the frequency range and changing the structure of the guitar. The result was a powerful sound described by sound engineers as explosive in the air. This made his style unique, creating a unique identity for Kiss that many other bands could not copy. The group's success took them from small stages to giant stadiums. Kiss became a worldwide phenomenon, selling millions of albums and booking shows around the world. During that golden age, Frehley was always the center of every show. Although Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley were the faces of the band, Frehley's guitar sound was the soul that defined the Kiss brand. An American music magazine once wrote, "If Kiss were a planet, Frehley would be the energy that keeps it spinning." However, success also brought pressure. Differences in creative thinking began to appear. Frehley liked to experiment with sound, while Simmons focused on business strategy. This opposition did not become a fight, but it laid the foundation for later cracks. During the period when the group released Alive and Destroyer, Frehley had to record many parts separately because of the tight schedule. However, he still finished them excellently, bringing solo songs that are considered classics of that decade. A notable point is that Frehley never let himself be absorbed into the commercial machine of Kiss. Hestel recorded his own demos, composed independently, and experimented with his own playing style. This made him respected in the music world because he always maintained his difference. Gene Simmons' words at the memorial service made it even clearer Ace didn't play by the rules. He was the only one in Kiss who played from the heart, not by their numbers. In the late 1970s, Frehley released his first solo album, which sold millions of copies worldwide. The hit New York Groove helped him establish himself outside of Kiss. While still with the band, Frehley proved that he could exist on his own. It was also themament when audiences recognized him as more than just a guitarist. He was a creative icon, an inspiration for generations of artists to come. Frehley's first solo album and huge success put him in the spotlight, both as a member of Kiss and as a globally recognized independent artist. That personal success also revealed the pressures and differences in the relationship with his teammates, paving the way for the challenges that lay ahead in the musical journey. Cracks behind the mask entering the later stages of his career with Kiss ace Frehley faced an increasingly demanding environment. The huge success forced the group to work at a heavy intensity, leading to unavoidable tensions. As the touring and recording schedule became continuous, Frehley began to feel tired of the giant wheel of the Kiss brand. While Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley focused on developing the image, expanding the product, and positioning the band as a global brand, Frehley still wanted to keep the focus on the music. This different thinking gradually created a gap within the group. In group meetings, Frehley often suggested changing the musical style to a more free direction. While Simmons put first the popular element, the conflict was not loud, but it was evident on each recording. On some projects, Frehley's guitar parts were replaced or edited to fit the overall direction, which he was not happy with. The creative differences became an issue that continued through the end of the decade. Although the group maintained commercial success, the period of making, the albums Dynasty and Unmasked marked a major change in musical structure. Frehley had less space to express himself, but he still made his mark with some outstanding songs such as Hard Times and Talk to Me. Although these songs did not achieve record sales, they clearly showed his own personality in the context of Kiss, gradually shifting to a lighter style. Frehley once shared in an interview, "I always wanted every song to have a soul, no matter what album it was on." The built-up fatigue led to the decision to leave the group. In 1982, after completing the elder Frehley officially left Kiss, there was no big announcement, just a brief press release. But his quiet departure, his mark, is still evident in the group's legacy. FREHLEY'S departure from Kiss brought in a new era, one in which he'd full control over his music, but also faced the pressure of self-assertion. After leaving the group, FREHLEY formed his own band, FREHLEY'S Comet. The project quickly got attention for its distinctive hard rock style. The debut album was released with impressive sales and positive reviews from critics. The song Rock Soldiers became a hit, helping FREHLEY confirm that he was still in form after leaving Kiss. During this period, FREHLEY focused on writing, producing, and performing with his close team. Meanwhile, Kiss continued to operate as a giant brand. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley recruited new members to keep going. Although he was no longer a member, FREHLEY was still considered an integral part of the group. The Spaceman character remained but was taken over by someone else, which disappointed him. However, instead of reacting, FREHLEY chose to continue on his own path. He believed that genuine music would protect its value. In the mid-1990s, after nearly a decade of independent activities, FREHLEY unexpectedly returned to Kiss for a reunion tour. This was the first time all 4 original members appeared on stage together in more than 10 years. These shows were constantly sold out, and the audience warmly welcomed them. The image of FREHLEY in his familiar silver soutons again made waves in the rock world. This reunion tour became one of the highest-earning shows at that time. However, the harmony only lasted a few years. The old disagreements quickly returned. The pressure of tour schedules differences in lifestyle and musical direction led FREHLEY to leave the band for the second time in the early 2000s. He then announced that he would not participate in any more long-term tours, instead focusing on his personal projects. But after his departure from the big stage, he kept a friendly relationship with his former members, especially Gene Simmons. In a later interview, Simmons admitted, "We had a lot of conflicts, but Ace was the one who created the identity that Kiss is based on. Without him, our history would be different." Those words were repeated many years later when Simmons gave the eulogy at FREHLEY'S funeral. Looking back on that period, many critics believe that this was the period that truly shaped FREHLEY'S character, an artist who wanted freedom rather than being tied down by fame. He did not leave the band out of pure unhappiness, but because he wanted to maintain his artistic identity. It was this separation that helped him build his own legacy different from the rest of the band. FREHLEY'S independent steps showed that the value of music does not depend on the flashiness or the scale of the stage. This steadiness sets the stage for the recognition of his legacy, where his personality and style still play a central role, bringing the audience back to the core of the music, the legacy of a lone guitar. After Ace Frehley passed away, what he left behind was more than just music. It was a rare artistic mindset in the rock world, where passion always goes hand in hand with complete honesty. Frehley's name appeared frequently in music publications for many months, not to mourn, but to remind the values he once represented. In the context of modern rock, increasingly dependent on technology and image, Frehley became a perfect example of an artist who did not change his core, despite the changing times. Those who have worked with him say that whether in the studio or behind the scenes, Frehley always puts the music first. He has his own rule and play when he feels real emotion. For him, all techniques or reputations are meaningless without connection with the sound. It is this philosophy that makes his recordings, although not perfect, still have lasting life. A recording engineer once said, "Ace can play a part wrongly, but everyone wants to keep it because there is soul in it." Frehley's way of working strongly influenced many generations of guitarists. Many artists, such as Dave Grohl or Tom Morello, have mentioned him as an inspiration. Many people admit that it was Frehley's way of blending classical techniques with modern playing that opened the way for the hard rock and glam metal styles of the 1980s. His early albums became an unofficial lesson plan for many young guitarists. In a VH1 special, someone once said, "None of us learned perfection from Ace, we learned truth." That influence also spread to popular culture. Frehley's Spaceman image became not only a musical icon, but also a symbol of creative freedom. His silver suit, glowing guitar, and powerful performance style were recreated in many shows, movies, and even video games. A musical instrument maker worked together own a limited edition guitar called the AFO-1 with the words "Inside the Body Fly High Spaceman." All of the products sold out within hours of being announced. In the years after his death, art schools in the US began to include Frehley's name in lists of people who had influenced modern music. In his lectures, Teachers often emphasized his role in transforming the rock scene into a form of performance where sound, image, and personality all came together. That innovation helped later generations understand that rock was not just about loud sound, but about daring to be different. Despite his career's ups and downs, Frehley was never considered the guy who left Kiss, but the guy who expanded Kiss with his own identity. This was echoed by Gene Simmons in a post-funeral speech. When people think of Kiss, they think of explosion. But if you listen closely, it's Ace's guitar that makes the audience feel the true heart of the band. This quote was quickly carved on a memorial plaque donated by fans. Besides music, Frehley's greatest legacy is his attitude. He never used fame to show off. When asked about his success, he simply replied, "If I can still hold a guitar and make someone happy when they hear it, that's success." That simple view earned him respect both inside and outside the rock world. For many, Frehley was the example of the unyielding artist, one who kept his faith in the truth, even when the spotlight faded. Following the memorial service, a charity called the Frehley Foundation for Music Youth was created. The foundation, which supports disadvantaged young people who want to learn music, was started by his old friends and family. Gene Simmons was the first contributor with the message, "If Ace were alive, he would want to see these kids holding a guitar." Since then, the foundation has been active, giving out hundreds of scholarships each year. Frehley's legacy has also been preserved through his original recordings restored and released again in a collection called Starchild and Spaceman, the original tapes. This collection focuses on previously unreleased guitar recordings from the mid-1970s. The sounds are raw with occasional bursts of Frehley's laughter or short speeches, but that's what makes them so valuable. Many critics have said that this collection gives listeners a better understanding of how Frehley developed his own style. Natural, energetic, and unprocessed. The last image of him in the public eye is of a simple artist standing next to his old guitar in a small studio smiling as he talks about music. There's no makeup, just the eyes of someone who has walked every stage and still has the same joy. Frehley once said in his last interview, "Every sound I make comes from real emotion. When you play from the heart, people hear it." That quote has been repeated many times in memorial programs as a confirmation of the way he lived and created. With Ace Frehley's journey and legacy just shared, his music and the values he left behind will live on in each of us. If you find this story inspiring, please like and share so your friends can know the legacy of Spaceman. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more honest and emotional music stories like this. And don't forget to leave a comment sharing your memories or favorite Ace songs that you still listen to today. Let's keep Ace Frehley's spirit alive through every note.